For those that don't know who I am, my name is Daniel, and I am not the pastor of this church. I'm visiting Pastor Jonathan. He's gone. He's in America, and so I'm filling in for him. I've been here for 3 weeks. This is the third week that I've been here. And it's nice when you have like a block of time, because then you can do a series and you don't have to think you do still have to think a lot, but you don't have to think like, what do I speak about every single Sunday? I mean, I do, but like when it's a series, it's easier. And so right now we're looking at Luke 15, and Luke 15 is really incredible in the sense that there's 3 parables, and so it was great because, I was here for 3 weeks, and we're coming to the very tail end of these 3 parables. And just as a reminder for those that have been here and for those that haven't been here, we have this setup in Luke 15, verse 1, where there are these tax collectors and these sinners, and they're hanging out with Jesus. And then there's another set of people called the Pharisees and the scribes, and they're the righteous people of that time. The tax collectors and the sinners were obviously the drudges of society. People didn't like them at that cultural context. And then you have Jesus, who's hanging out with all of them, and the Pharisees and the scribes are upset, and they start grumbling because he's hanging out with them and he's eating with them. And so Jesus recognizes this, and he starts to tell 3 sets of parables. The first one is popularly known as the lost sheep, and I really don't like that title, and I said that it should be the good shepherd. And the second one was the lost coin, and again, I don't like that title, and I said it should be the diligent women. And this third one is very popular, and it's called the Prodigal Son. And all 3 of these parables, a lot of the times I think we focus on the lostness of that item, the sheep, the coin, and the son. And I am proposing to you through these 3 weeks that we need to focus on the seeker, on the person that is looking for this lost item. Now, of course, each item, as the stories progress, the value of each item goes up. For example, with the first one, there's 100 sheep and 1 is gone. So you're only losing 1% of whatever, of that value, right? It's 1% of your investment in that sense. And then in the second story, there's 10 coins and 1 coin is gone. So now you're looking at 10% of what's missing. And then in this parable of this prodigal son, there are 2 sons and 1 goes away. So now you're at 50% of what's missing. Now I have 2 children myself, like the Lawrences. They have 2 daughters, the same way I have 2 daughters. And I'm not saying like, hey, if I lose 1 kid, I have a spare, so it's all good. That's not what I'm saying. But the idea here is that each lostness is getting greater and greater. But again, I don't want to focus on the lostness. I want to focus on the seeker. So in the first one, I said the good shepherd, he went and he looked for that 1. And now again, the 1, it wasn't like a willingness, like it just kind of wandered away. But even though that 1 wandered away, the shepherd, he risked the lot to go look for that 1. And then in the second one, it's the idea was this coin was lost inside the house. And so, the lady was very diligent in looking for this 1. And then this third one, we have this prodigal son. And I want to focus on the father rather than the son. And so for me, a lot of the times, again, I don't like the title, The Prodigal Son, and the title that I rather give it is The Loving Father, and that's where I want to focus on. And again, I think there's sometimes a disconnect between when we hear about God and we understand who God is, there's this image of God that he is, when we think religiously, we think that God is kind of like this vengeful God. God is just waiting for us to mess up, especially the Old Testament God is just waiting for us to make a mistake so then he can like punish us. And I'm saying, no, that's not how this Father is really, how he's being represented, especially in this day and age as far as when this was written or when Jesus gave this parable. The paradigm is shifting from this judgmental God to this loving God. And again, I don't know where your relationship with your father is, your earthly father, but I'm trying to say that, hey, no, the Father, the Heavenly Father is a loving Father. And so let's look through this scripture really quickly. There's 4 main points, and the first point we have is this: the loving Father has a grieving heart. This is found in verses 11 through 13. I'm not going to read the whole everything, but I will read this. And it says this. And he said, he is Jesus, there was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. Now, the reason why I said this first point is the loving father has a grieving heart is this. When we look at this in the context of this day and of that time and that culture, when the son approached his father and he said, hey, give me my inheritance, this was basically like this very social taboo thing to do. Because basically the son is saying, hey, listen, I want you to die and I want what's owed to me. At that point, the father could have been like, okay, you know what? This is the situation. You are cut off from the inheritance. He could have kicked him out of the house and he could have been like, hey, you're out. You're done. He could have done that, but no, that's not what he did. Now, again, I have 2 kids, and both my kids, they're not too old. One just turned 11, the other one is 8. And I kind of have a general idea of their personality, okay? I've been with them, the older one for 11 years, the younger one 8 years. And so I kind of get like how they are, right? And this father, at this time and age, we don't know how old this son is, but we can infer that this kid was probably like legally he was an adult, and so he is able to go on this trip. And so obviously this kid is probably like 20s, maybe late teens, in 20s, maybe in their 30s. I don't know. We don't really know how old, but at this point the father should understand what his child is like. And so in his mind, he knows that this kid, what he's going to do is if he gets a lot of money, he's going to probably blow it, okay? He understands that. And so 1, this kid is telling his father, hey, I want you to die. 2, I'm going to blow this money. And what the father does is he says, you know what? I will give you this money. But he understands that by doing this, that the son is going to do all this stuff, okay? Now, how is this a grieving heart? Well, like, for example, I do a lot of the cooking at the house just because that's just, I like to do it. And, my wife also works. And so, a lot of the times these kids come my kids' friends, they come and visit the house and they're like, you're always like around. Why is that? Like, and for Japanese kids, it's weird, right? Because the dad is always out and the wife is, the mom is in. But I'm always around and I like when the kids are still playing, I'm starting to cook dinner and stuff like that. And so it's like, it boggles your mind. And it's not like I'm not doing nothing. Obviously, I do ministry and stuff, but I could do that at the house. And so I cook a lot. And there was this time where my younger kid, she really likes to help, and she is a good help, but she's very stubborn and things like that, and she just wanted to help. And I don't know, I think she was maybe 3 years old at the time, and it was around breakfast time, and she's like, Daddy, I want to help. And I'm like, this is not going to be help, okay? I knew that going into it, but she's like, I want to help. And so I'm like, okay, all right, then help me make the eggs. And so I was going to go and, go to the refrigerator and I'm going to grab the eggs. And she's, no, I want to help from there. And so she picks out an egg from the refrigerator and immediately drops it. And I'm like, ugh. Okay, and so then, I'm like, okay, let's be careful now. I'm trying to be very patient. And she takes the second egg out and she cracks it and she does it too hard and it is wasted, right? It doesn't even go in the bowl, like maybe a little bit goes into the bowl. Lots of shells go into the bowl. But then the third egg, she does it and, she cracks it again. This time it's better. And there's a couple shells, whatever. And, she's mixing it. She's spilling the eggs everywhere and everything. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, goodness, I would have been done. I would have been done. I wouldn't have roasted these eggs. But anyways, I let her do it. Even though I knew that this was going to be the end results, I let her do it to be helpful. And later on, for her to get independence. And this is how this father is. He knows his son is going to waste this money because he knows this kid's personality. But he's still in that grieving way. He said, you know what? Okay. And he gives the son the money. The second point we come to is this, that the loving father has a longing heart. And it says this in verse 13, or excuse me, verse 20. Actually, before I skip to verse 20, I'm not reading all this. What happens is, of course, the kid, he goes off, he spends the money, he's being stupid, he's, I don't know what he does, but he spends it all, he starts working in a pig pen, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And he comes to his senses and he says, I'm going to go back to the house and he has this whole, this script and like, please help me, I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. And he's going to come home and he's going to tell this to his father. And so now we're at verse 20 and this is what it says. And it says, and he rose, that's the son, and he came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. Now, this is, sorry, okay, this is weird. It has like the third point already coming up. So I'm like, you're ahead. You're not ahead, sorry. And so the setup is this. The son is coming home, and his father happens to see him, and he runs out to him, right? Because he has this, he has this compassion. But the thing is, it's not like the father just happened to one day look out the window and see his son. The idea here is that the father is constantly looking for his son. I don't know, like, the situation, like, is he only taking 15, 20 minutes out of the day? But, that's like, you're 24 hours. How does he know that the son is coming back? How did he just happen to see him? I don't think it was like that. I feel like the idea is that this father was continually looking for his son. Now, again, this father, he's a busy man. He's a rich man, and he has responsibilities. But despite that, he is still taking time out of his day to look for his son. He's looking far off, waiting for his son to come back. He has this longing in his heart that despite what his son did, saying basically die, despite the fact that he knows his son is going to waste his money, he's still longing for the son to come back to him. A couple of months ago, I was preaching at this one Japanese church, and they had two services. And in between the first service and the second service, there's this, there's a little bit of time, just like here. And at that Sunday, it just happened that a lot of stuff was happening. And my wife, she was working. She was in Osaka doing this thing for her work. And so I brought my second daughter, my youngest daughter, with me. But my oldest daughter, she actually had a makeup test, and she had to go to Juku for this makeup test, cram school. And so lots of moving parts. We live in Yokohama. I was actually in Western Tokyo preaching. And again, I had two services. And so I'm like, I can't, pick up my daughter. But just by chance, my parents were in town. But they were in a completely different part of Tokyo. And so the way we set up was I dropped off my daughter, my oldest daughter, at the train station. I said, go to Juku. And then when you come, don't come stop at our train station. Keep on going down the line. And then my parents, your grandparents, will pick you up from this station. Okay? And so I have a tracker on my phone, right? I could track my daughter. And so this is before service, and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, she got out of Juku. I get the notice she got out, and so I'm tracking her, making sure that she's gonna go. And I'm looking, and I keep on checking. And in my mind, I'm like, by this time, she will be with my parents. And so I told both my parents and my daughter, message me when you guys meet. Well, this time passed. So I'm like, oh my goodness, service is about to start. And so I look at my phone, I'm like, dude, she's 3 stations down, where she's supposed to go. So I'm messaging her, hey, where are you at? What are you doing? Why are you and she's not answering. So I call her. I'm like, hey, by this time worship actually started. Praise and worship is going on. And I'm panicking, right? I'm like, where are you at? And she's like, oh, I was, reading on my phone. I'm sorry. And so I'd turn around and go, it's really easy. And so she goes back. And then I tell my parents, she's not here. Where is she? I thought she was supposed to be here. I'm like, she's coming back. And so I told them, you got to tell me when she gets with you. Well, they don't. And so like, I'm like still panicking, like I'm about to come up to preach and I'm panicking. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm looking, and like, I see them wandering off and I'm like, hey, are they with you? And so like, again, I'm calling, I'm like, hey, like literally like a minute before I'm preaching, I'm like, are they with you? And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we forgot. I'm like, dude, I'm panicking here. I'm about to preach. This is how the Father feels. He is just waiting for the Son to come back. Moving on. The third point, the loving Father has a compassionate heart. And so verse 20, the second part says this. His father saw him and felt compassion, ran and embraced him, kissed him. And then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servant, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes and his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this is my son who was dead and is alive again. He was lost and found, and they began to celebrate. Now, here we have the situation where the son, again, he has this whole speech all rehearsed. He knows what he's going to say. He's walking home, and as he's walking home, all of a sudden he sees his father running towards him. Now, of course, there's a lot of things probably going on in this kid's mind. It's like, is this father going to like deck me? Is he going to yell at me? What's going on? But this father is running towards him, and this father just hugs him, kisses him, and says all these things, right? Now, culturally, again, we have to understand what's going on. When this father is running towards this son, this is not something that is normal in this day and age. One, because, again, this father, he is a man of considerable wealth. He is a man of a certain stature, and so he doesn't run, okay? I mean, I don't even run, right? Like, that's just like not my thing. I tell my kids, hey, like, I'll help you with your homework, but I ain't gonna go playing outside and running and stuff like that, right? That's just not who I am. And like this father, he runs. And again, we think about like the clothing that they wore. Like, I'm not friends with you on Facebook, but this guy, promise, his Facebook picture is like of him in the yukata, right? Like, can you see him running in that? No, right? And that's like how they're dressed. They're kind of dressed like that. They're wearing these robes and things like that. And so culturally, again, he doesn't run, but even the clothes-wise, he doesn't run. And so scholars think that either this father, he would have had to disrobe to run towards this guy, or he had to like hike this all up and like tie it and run with this stuff in his hands. And so he is so desperate. This father is so desperate. He feels such compassion. He feels such longing for this son that he runs, despite what culture says, despite what his clothing he has on. He runs towards this kid. And again, this kid has a speech all set up, and he starts saying the speech, but his father cuts him off midway through. And he says, it's okay. And here we see that, again, this kid is probably dirty. He was working in the pig pen, and we don't know how long it took him to get there, but the father hugs him, he kisses him, and he reinstates him to where he's supposed to be at. He could have been like, you know what? Man, like, take him, let's throw him in jail, let's do all this horrible things to him. But he says, know what? Give him the best robe, give him the ring, give him these shoes. We are saying that you are part of the family once more. And then the last point is this. The loving father has a reconciling heart. What happened is, after this, they're throwing this big party. They're having this great time, and the older brother, he's out in the fields. He's being dutiful. He is being like, just like a legit son, right? He is just being the righteous. He is being, the faithful son. And he comes back tired from all the work that he's been doing for the family. And he hears this, all this commotion. And he's like, what is going on? And they're like, hey, your younger brother has come back. And so we're throwing the party. And so obviously the older son is furious. He is furious, and he approaches his father. Actually, he doesn't even approach his father. His father has to come to him, and he starts to talk to him. And the father is like, listen, like, why aren't you joining us? We're celebrating. And the son says this. Okay, let's, verse 31 for 32, it says this. And he said to him, Excuse me. No. That's the reconciling part. What the son said, sorry, I didn't have this written down. What the son said to his father, what the eldest son said to his father is, your son has come back, and he did all this crazy stuff, but you're still throwing this party. And then the father says this to him. And he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It has been fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this is your brother who was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. Now, why I say that the fourth point is that he has a reconciling heart is this. The eldest son, is upset, and I get it. I totally understand where this guy is coming from, okay? And the son says, your son. Basically, he's telling the father that, hey, I am not a part of this equation here. It's you two. He is saying, I'm set apart. I'm not part of this family anymore. Your son did all of this stuff. But here, the father is saying, no. It's your brother. Your brother has been dead, and he's come back. And so this father is saying, no, we are a family. He is trying to reconcile the situation. And again, I get the frustration of this older brother. Especially, when you're trying to be good and you're doing everything that's right, and you have this dumb brother that is going off and doing all this stuff, and inside, deep down inside, you want to do that too. And you're like, maybe this kid, he couldn't do it because he wanted to be faithful or he was afraid to go out. I don't know the situation. But the fact of the matter is, he's feeling frustrated. I get that. I was telling earlier, one day I was parking in one of the parking meters. Here, I love Tokyo because on at least this area, Sundays and holidays, it's free, right? In Yokohama, it doesn't matter. It's unless it's January 1st through 3rd, you have to pay all the time. But anyways, so I did pay. I put, 300 yen for an hour. And I came back 67 minutes later, and I had a ticket. And I was like, ugh, 7 minutes. And I get a ticket, and I'm like, ah. And it's 10,000 yen. It's not chump change, right? It's a considerable amount, and it's points on your driver's license. And I'm like, ah, come on, right? And so of course I go pay my 10,000 yen. But there are times where I'm driving, and I live on a very where I live, it's in Yokohama again. To get to my house, you drive up a hill, and it's a small road. It's actually less than this to here. I mean, it's smaller than that. 2 cars can pass by, but you got to be careful because, if there's 2 cars and a bike and a person, somebody's gonna hit somebody. So that's how narrow it is. Now I live in an even narrower road, and it's literally, it could be 1 car and 1 bicycle. If there's 2 bicycles or 2 people, you're gonna hit somebody. And so it's very, very, very narrow. And so when I pull out, I have to I have to pull out, and I'm pulling out into this other narrow road. And there is times where this car is constantly parked, 3-4 hours in this one spot as I'm trying to pull out. So when I'm pulling out, I gotta actually pull out and then back up and then do this 3-point thingy to go down. And it's frustrating because it's in the way and it's always there. And it never gets ticketed. I'm 7 minutes and I have to pay 10,000 yen, and this guy, he's causing all sorts of problems because a bus even comes through this place, right? Causing all sorts of problems, and he never gets tickets. So I get this frustration, I get that frustration. You can hear it, right? I get why this elder son gets frustrated. But the thing is, the father, this loving father is hey, you know what? I get it. But in the end, everything that I have is yours. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is that despite everything that either son does, the father is still trying to love on both of them and is still trying to even reconcile the two together. As we close, I want to kind of like wrap this up and just this series up and just how does this like really apply to us today? Now, here's the thing. It's really cool because Jesus, like, obviously he's Jesus. And so like, but it's just the way that he tells his stories, the way that he just brings everything together is just really beautiful. Again, we have 3 stories here, and each story has 3 parts to it in the sense that there's 3 characters in each one of these things. And again, in verse 1 and 3, there are 3 people. There's the tax collectors, the sinners, the Pharisees and scribes, and Jesus. And in the first story, again, we have the good shepherd. We have the one guy that, the one sheep that wanders away, and the 99. And then in the women, the diligent women, we have the diligent women. We have the 1 coin, and we have the 9 coins. And in this one, we have the father, the prodigal son, and the diligent son. And I think in each instances, the stories are similar. Okay, but each one is trying to focus on, again, the person that's seeking. The first one being Jesus. The second one that I said last week was the faithful church people coming here trying to bring reconciliation. And then this third one is God the Father. Now, I think a lot of the times, again, this image of the Father, what is it to you? There are times in the New Testament and the Old Testament that they kind of give explanation to who God is. But there's one time where in several instances, where God the Father is called Abba. Now, this idea of Abba is this, in our sense, as far as in America, is the idea of this daddy. This father that is so loving, that cares for his children. Now, again, when I have 2 children, and they're getting older, and so one of them doesn't even call me daddy anymore. It's kind of a shock, like, oh, she doesn't call me daddy. But like, when they were younger, when they needed something, they would come to me and they would say, "Daddy, I need this." Actually, one still does that. And when they say that to me, I feel this compassion. I feel this like, of course, I want to do this for you because you're my child. There is no obligation on them to do something for me to do what they are asking for. When they're saying, "I'm hungry, I want a snack," I will get them the snack. Or I need new socks or something, I will go get them new socks. When I need to do something, help on their homework, I will help them. There is no obligation. They don't have to do something for me to do this for them, because I am their father and they are saying, "Daddy, I need your help." Now, I think a lot of the times when we hear like religion, okay? I don't like Christianity to be called religion. Because a lot of the times, religion says that you have to do these things to receive this thing. I have to go to the temple. I have to go to the church. I have to go to the sanctuary and do this. I have to pray these many times, these many hours, these many minutes. I have to give. I have to do these good things. And then if I do all of these things, I will receive this. But here in this parable, that's not the case. I do believe that Christianity is more of a relationship. In this parable, it clearly shows that. There's this father that, for all intents and purposes, he gets put down. He gets told to die. His other son, even though he might be faithful, he says, "I'm no longer part of this." But despite that, this father is saying, "No, I want to be family." I think a lot of the times we hear these words, grace and mercy, a lot. And I think a lot of the times we don't really truly grasp what grace and mercy really is. Mercy, a lot of the times, is when, for example, I got that parking ticket. when I go before a judge or whatever, or like the police station in Japan, you got to go to like the konbini or whatever to pay this. Mercy would say that when I go to pay, they say you don't need to pay. That's mercy. But here in this story, we're seeing grace in action. What is grace? When I have this ticket and I go to 7-Eleven, I go to the J post to pay for this 10,000 yen ticket, grace says what I deserve is I have to pay. That's justice. Justice is I have to pay for what I've done. That is justice. Grace says that when I pay, J-Post says, no, you don't have to pay. We'll give you 10,000 yen. And that's what God is doing to us. A lot of the times we try to rank sin. We say, a white lie, that's nothing. Killing somebody is horrible. In Jesus' eyes, in God's eyes, sin is sin. It's all the same. Grace, sometimes, I understand we might receive more grace than others. But grace is grace. So, as we close and as we pray, I want us to think about this. Think about your own life. Where am I in my walk with God? How do I view God? Do I view him as this killjoy, this person that just wants to punish me? Or do I see him as this loving father who is just longing to be with me, who has all this compassion, who is just continually giving me grace, despite all the stuff that I do, despite all of the screw-ups that I am? Maybe it's not. But maybe I have this judgment in my heart, like, I see that guy over there. I see this lady over here. She does all of this stuff, but she still receives the same grace as I do. And there might be a little bit of contentment in your heart. I don't know where you're at. But look and search inside of your own heart and think about it. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, we just come before you today and we thank you. We thank you for these 3 parables because at the time, to the Pharisees and the scribes, it was unbelievable that you would take the time to break bread and to just hang out with these tax collectors and sinners. But as you gave these stories, we realized that all of us are sinners in one way or another. Maybe we're outright sinful. Maybe we just kind of wandered away. I don't know where we are in our hearts. But the fact of the matter is that your grace continues to abound to us on a daily basis, despite the fact that we do not deserve it. And so, Father, I just pray that if there's someone here today that might have some sort of contentment in their life, or that they willfully is going away from you, that they would recognize that you are truly a loving Father, that you do want to reconcile with them and reconcile us together. Now, maybe there are people here that are just perfect and walking right. Then, Father, I pray that you help them find those that aren't and bring them back to reconciliation as well. And so, Father, help each and every single one of us today to recognize that you are our loving Father. We thank you in your name.